Welcome to the City League Sports Show here. On the show today, that's right, everybody, we have a former Bearcat in the house. Yes, another member, Brookhaven, is here with us. And on the show, joining me today is Marlon Kerner, here to chop it up with us. I'm your host, Dr. Vince Clarino. We're going to talk about it. Marlon, say hello to everybody here in Central Ohio.
What's up, Columbus, Brookhaven, Bearcat Nation. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, so Marlon, you're the first one. I love it. You put the nation on the end of on Bearcat Nation, right? Like you guys got this magical thing. And you're the first one, I think, to put a nation on the end of it, right? And to be honest, I think it deserves that, right? Like I haven't heard anyone else say that, but there was some special stuff going on the north side of Columbus, Ohio, right? In that time span of like the 80s, 90s, you know, kind of late 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, you all were rolling. When you look back on just that whole piece, so for everyone that doesn't know, you're a former Brookhaven Bearcat, as I shared. You're an OSU guy, which we're going to get into. You're a football fanatic, right? Like football just pours out of you when you walk and talk and live and breathe. And so so when you look back at your time, Brookhaven, like we're just going to start there. What does it say to you to be a part of that Brookhaven kind of legacy of really great athletes and just really good people that have come out of there? What does that say to you?
You know, it's a blessing, right? I think when you get old like me now, as we were joking, talking earlier, you know, you think about all the people that you got to play with and the people that cross paths. And now sometimes as I get a little older and come across people on Facebook or come back into Columbus and bump into people, you know, you're grateful because you think about how life plays out and how life is funny and how one decision kind of will alter or enhance where you're trying to go. And I think of myself like, you know, people always ask me, like, you know, did you always want to play football? Like, I remember wanting to play football at 4 years old, right? Like, that was my thing. Like, I remember my 4th birthday. I'm a March baby. It's pretty warm in Columbus around then when you start getting to the middle of March. And I remember on my 4th birthday going outside and my mom's like, you got to wear dress. You know, we're having a birthday party. So she puts me in black dress pants and the shirt. I'm a twin. So anybody that doesn't know me, I'm a twin. Yep. So me and my brother and I, we always dressed alike. So we had our little dress pants on.
What's your brother's name?
Our shoes. His name is Marshawn. So
Marlon
Marshawn. So Eminem, we went to, graduated from high school, a lot of friends. We were just talking last night. I didn't tell him about this podcast, so he'll be surprised that I'm on it. But you know, we're sitting there and I'm like, Mom, can I go outside and play football? Because I just love playing football and I wanted to play with the big kids. Like I didn't want to play with kids my age. I wanted to go outside and play football with the big kids. Yeah. She says yes. And I'm like, I can't play in these dress shoes. And she says, nope, you got to keep the dress shoes on. But I can't cut in the grass on these. So I'm about to throw a tantrum at 4. But Mom went out. I go outside. I go play football. I go make a cut in this little grass. And I slip. And my feet go out from under me, and I go head first into the sidewalk, knock out my 2 front teeth, like literally. Oh wow! Heal the nerves on my front 2 teeth. Like, yeah, I'm crying. I've got an ice pack, no ice cream and cake for me at all. Yeah. And I go to the dentist, and they're like, "Listen, you killed all the nerves. Like, your teeth have got to come out." Luckily, they were the baby teeth. Yeah. So I was without my 2 front teeth for like 3 years. Like they didn't come in until I was like 7. And my favorite song, including the summertime, was All I Want for Christmas Is My 2 Front Teeth. Oh, wow. That was the one thing that kind of started my love affair with football. And I would just be outside playing football all the time. And the crazy thing is I didn't play organized football to the 8th grade. So yeah, I read that. I read that someplace. Like that was it. Like that was like I didn't play. I played for Gahanna Lincoln. I was a Gahanna Lincoln. They had like a youth team or something like that. Yeah, they had a little youth league, and that was my first time playing in the 8th grade. I played there, and then everybody wanted to go to Mifflin because Mifflin was like the school, but Brookhaven had all the success, and so I knew I was going to Brookhaven, and everybody's like, "You want to go to Mifflin?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't live in their school district," so I went to Brookhaven. Yeah, and I wanted to be a running back, and there was like 40 running backs. All right, well, before we even get into that, right? I just want to share to all the listeners
Man, that is a great 4-year-old story. Like, I know as a kid that you know what I mean, that you know how challenging that must have been, but to be able to have a part of that as your chapter, you look back, you can remember 4-year-old birthday, wanting to play football, and then obviously you have this tough situation, you lose your teeth, right? But it kind of, you know, like that puts you on this journey of maybe for all the things that you got to be sometimes in football. You got to be tough, right? You lose your teeth at 4. You've already got the tough part right there. Boom, check, right? You know what I mean? Like, if anyone's wondering, there you go. You kind of passed the first hurdle, and then you know, like you shared, I read you were a twin. Certainly you knew that you didn't play Pee Wee Little League football. You arrive at a Brookhaven that already sort of had some studs. But I kind of want to fast forward because we only get a little bit of time, and your stories are so amazing. We can't get to everything in a half an hour, to be honest, right? So I want to kind of fast forward, but I want to share. So, like, when you're at Brookhaven, sort of like your sophomore, junior, senior year, you end up there with the Gwynn brothers.
Yep.
Terry Glenn, June Henley, Steve Ayers, you know what I mean? Like y'all was thumping, you know what I mean? You guys had a lot of guys. And when you look back and you see that Brookhaven team, like when you start to come into your own really, and I know like in your sophomore year, you really started to develop and you were also a quarterback, which we'll kind of get to a little bit, right? But when you look back and you just see and you hear those names, like what jumps out to you and what do you remember about being a part of that group? Because you're one of those dudes also. You're one of these names that we're throwing around as Brookhaven stud, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, when you think about that, Steve and Steve was in my class. So it was Steve. It was my good friend, best friend at the time, Ron Buster Cunningham. So it was so many of us. I just remember the amount of proving of ourselves that we did, the competition that we had amongst ourselves, like myself and Anthony and Jason and Terry and just you and Wilbur Brown. That was a class before us, and you just had so many guys, Tyron Abington. So we had like all these dudes that just kind of we just pushed each other. Like that was what I remember the most, is always pushing each other. Ernest Perry, who was also a really good running back, is there. And so, you know, I think my sophomore year, we were all on the JV team. I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, where do we go from here? And there was a chance of whether I was going to be the starting quarterback for varsity. And I think a little bit of politics got involved, a little bit of not having full trust in the coach got involved. He didn't trust me as much, Coach Miller. And I remember that because I remember thinking when I didn't win a starting job my sophomore year, which I definitely thought I should have. Okay. And I've had some other players like, you should have started. You didn't give it. Like, I did give them all. There was one scenario that stood out in my mind. And so I grew up in a single parent home. Okay. And so my dad was like in and out, kind of like, you know, that dude that kind of came around when he wanted to come around, wanted to play dad, like make it look like I've got this great family, but didn't really have the responsibility of having a family. Okay. You know, send birthday money on Christmas money on birthday, you know, all that stuff. Right. So I had the opportunity. I found out that I had a sister. I had a half sister, and we all had the opportunity to go spend a week with my dad in California, in Los Angeles, because he lived in LA. He was trying to find himself. Okay. Right. So he was an actor and all those things. And so, you know, no hard feelings, just that was my dad. So it was right smack in the middle of training camp. Okay. And so I had to make a decision on, did I want to go? And so I said, yeah, I'm going. So I go for a week. And so I miss a week of practice. Like, so, you know, 13, 14-year-old me doesn't understand the ramifications of I chose to go get that family time with my dad. And so I didn't really talk it through with the coaches. It's kind of say, hey, listen, I'm going to California with my dad for a week. I'll be back. You know, you're going to miss practice. I'm like, I'll get it when I get back. Right. And so I come back and they're like, what do we put in? And like, we ran an option. We installed this. Okay, I got it. Looked at it. Here's what you do. You know, you take the snap, run it in the belly, come out, pitch left, pitch right. Okay. They put me in, like, run it, did it. No problem. Like, didn't miss a beat, came down to it. But because of that one instance, they were just kind of like, we're not sure you have a grasp of entire offense in the package on the run. So we're going to start Danny. So I had to be the backup quarterback, but start as a JV quarterback and watch us not win the City League championship that year. And I remember thinking, like, I'll never let this happen again. I'll never, ever make a decision and not be a starter. Like, I'm going to think everything through. I'm going to make sure that I give all the work. And so that was kind of like, that was the turning point where I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I should be a starter. The dude that's playing in front of me is not better than me.
Yeah.
But he definitely had put in the work. He had put in more time. He had definitely earned the right to start. Yeah. And I didn't earn that right to start yet. So I was like, outside of that, no one's going to outwork me. No one's going to lead anything. Nobody's going to be better than me in anything that we do. And so that was when we really, really turned the corner as a program, I think. And I think that's when we really started really pushing all the names you mentioned. We just kind of had that different mindset of, we're all going to start next year. We're all going to push each other. We're all going to be better. And we're not going to not win another City League championship. I think we ended up losing to Independence and Roger Harper that year. We went back and forth in that game, and Hart returned a couple of kickoff returns for touchdowns, and I'm just like, not happening again. I would never not be starting on this field.
What's the lesson in that? What's the lesson?
It was something that I chose to go visit my dad and do those things. So I wasn't mad in the decision of the choice.
I get that. I'm just wondering what you believe. Yeah, what you believe is the lesson in that.
The lesson was more for, don't let anybody outwork you, right? Like, it wasn't a matter of that I missed. It was, I didn't communicate clearly what the expectations were. I didn't get what the expectations were from the head coach. I didn't, kind of express reasons why I wanted to go and why it meant this to me. Yeah. And I didn't really have that dog work ethic that was like, okay, and I remember having a conversation later in the year, and I remember Coach Whiting was just kind of like, listen, he was like,
Whiting, yes, indeed.
You want to be the man. He was like, then you got to be the man in everything. It's not just a matter of like, okay, you can make the throw. Yeah, you can make the throw. Yeah. He's like, but if you're the fastest on the field, you need to be the fastest on the field. So nobody should ever beat you in a sprint. You should never come last or in the middle of the pack for anything. And so once I got that switch, that kind of like, oh, okay. So you're saying like, we run 200s, I should be the first because I was the fastest on the field. Yep. Okay, yeah, got you. No problem. So once I really took that and kind of said, okay, no matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to give my all in everything that I do, then that was like something clicked. So then we ended up having a better record as a JV team than the varsity team that year. Yeah. And then a lot of us moved up to varsity the next year, junior year and senior year. And we just kind of went on a roll and then ended up getting to the state playoffs, because that was always the goal, to get to the state playoffs and really show that we can do in the City League. And so that was kind of the turning point in my career at Brookhaven, of really helping me understand mentally what it took to get to the next level.
Yeah, the beauty of that, I want to say your senior year in 90, you all finished the regular season #2 in your region. So you guys are #2 in the region, obviously a loaded team. We're talking about a number of guys that played, high-level Division I football, and they're all running around. And so, like from there, you have a big decision in life. And then obviously we for those of us that know you and have followed your story and all those things, obviously we know that you chose OSU and you end up there. But how does OSU become the final choice? Because from what I understand, you were like a diehard Notre Dame fan, running around like Notre Dame was running through your blood. So how do you end up at Ohio State then?
Notre Dame played the recruiting game. So I remember I got recruited from Ohio State because I always went to their football camp, because it was right there in Columbus. And so
down the street from you, basically.
Down the street. And I remember going to training camp or the football camp, and I'm there and we have to run a 40. And so I run the 40 and they're like, you got to run this 40. And I'm like, okay, how do you want me to stand? And he was like, you can do a 3-point stand. So I literally get into 3-point stands, and he was like, on your movement. And I go and I run a 4-4 flat. And he's like, okay. And then I come back. And he's like, okay, you got to do it again. I'm like, okay, same thing from the 3-point stand. I hadn't even really gotten into the track stance yet. So I didn't even really know how to get in that and get that lean coming like you out of the block and all that stuff. Like literally, I'm old school 3-point stand, like staggered feet, but hand down.
Arm up, one arm up in the back. Yeah.
Arm up and just kind of take off. Yeah. And I do it again and run a 4-4 flat. And then he's like, okay, you can go to your QB drills. And so I go back to do the quarterback drills where former Buckeye Bobby Hoying was at. So I had become friends with Bobby Hoying there. And then the defensive back coach, his name was Larry Coyer, came over and was just like, hey, he's like, let me talk to you for a second. And I'm like, sure. And I go over there and he's like, have you ever played corner? I'm like, yeah, I know how to play. Like, I don't play it now. And it's like, but I know how to play. He's like, go cover that guy. And so he keeps me there for about 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay. And I go and I kind of just go through this process of where do you want me to stand? Like about 7 yards. Okay. And so I'm in here just playing corner at this camp, breaking up passes. They're trying to run deep balls. And I'm like, I know I can run fast because I was very confident that I could run fast.
Yeah.
So I was never worried about anybody running by me or doing anything like that. So I spent about 15, 20 minutes for him. And he says, I think you can play corner to the next level. Would it be okay to recruit you? And I was like, sure. So from that point on, Ohio State was on the radar as far as like, okay, I have an opportunity to come play here. But I wanted to be Tony Rice because that was
no doubt
who I saw. He looked like me. He was at the highest stage. And so there was all this conversation of me and Notre Dame and was I going to go? And they came. We played one of our biggest games. We played Briggs. And we had lost our first game against DeSales, where Luke Fickle was the tight end.
Yep.
And so
right down the street from Brookhaven.
Right down, like literally a block down the street. And that game we wanted to win that game so bad because
neighborhood game.
Students, it was a neighborhood game, but their students came and put signs all on our the back. Like if you've ever been to Brookhaven, they've got that glass hallway in the back where the parking lot is. Well, the sales students came and put all these signs up, and they had some crazy stuff. We didn't get mad or take offense to it, but they put like, you're never going to beat us. If we were chicken, you'd beat us. We were watermelon, you might beat us, but you're not going to beat us, right? And I'm like, so we were hot, like we wanted to beat them, and we lost in overtime. Lost the game in overtime. But Briggs was the next test. So we were undefeated. They were undefeated, and we were 5-1 going into that game. And my good friend Ty Howard.
I'm gonna get to Ty about this. I'm gonna get to Ty also in this discussion.
Like you talk about the City League, there was so much talent. So so they were like, we're coming for you. We're gonna beat you. And we beat the brakes off of them. Like we beat them like 37-14. Like it wasn't close.
Right.
And from the onset, we were dialed in. And Notre Dame scout was there. He was at that game. And I think I ended up having, I rushed for like 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. I want to say June Henley rushed for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think Ernest Perry rushed like another 100 yards. Like we ran all over them. It was so much fun. But that was kind of like, that started the snowball of just how good our offense was that year. And so when it came down to it, there was just a recruiting game. Notre Dame just took forever to get me on a visit. Ohio State was like, we want you, we want you, we want you. And ironically, I just kind of said, I'm done. I'm done with this process. I'm just going to go to Ohio State. I made the decision to commit to Ohio State. And it was like a Tuesday when I called, and I just kind of like, I'm in. I'm there. I got the call.
Pretty simple process then, huh?
Simple process.
Hey, like now you got to get hats out and you got the wave banners and all this stuff. So you just pick up the phone and just call and say, hey, look, this is it. Yeah.
Yep. They called me. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm done. I told them I made a decision. I'm going to Ohio State.
Is that your senior year?
Notre Dame. That was after the end of my senior year. It was kind of, I had took a couple visits. I did a visit to Ohio State. I did a visit to Indiana.
Okay.
And then I was like, I'm done. Like I should have took that visit to Hawaii because I don't know why I didn't take the visit.
Of course,
to
you got to take the visit to Hawaii. Yes, indeed. For all you kids out there, for Hawaii is recruiting you, take the visit, right?
Take the visit to Hawaii. Do not say no to Hawaii.
Take the visit to Hawaii. Yes, indeed.
But that was it. Yeah. Like the day I made the decision, about an hour later, I got a call from Notre Dame. Like, hey, I know it's late. Can we get you down for a visit? I'm like, nope. I committed to Ohio State and I'm going there. And that was it. Like that was the last time I talked to him.
Oh, wow. Okay. So locked in. Notre Dame misses out on, you know what I mean, on your skill set and your talent by obviously hours, right? And so you then make this transition. You're at Ohio State. Now I want to share some names with you because I was looking at the like the roster while you were at Ohio State. You're there from like a 91 to 94, right? Is that kind of your time frame?
That was my time frame.
So check this out. Preston Harrison, South High School. Ty Howard, Briggs. Roger Harper, Independence. Anthony Gwynn, Brookhaven. Steve Sheets, West High School. Jason Gwynn, Brookhaven. Terry Glenn, Brookhaven, Alonzo Shavers, Eastmore. And then I'm going to throw in, because I know we claim him here in Columbus. We claim Lorenzo Styles also, Independence, even though Lorenzo was running back and forth between Columbus and PA. I mean, you guys had like 9 City League dudes on Ohio State's team during the time that you were there. you get to an Ohio State. Did it feel naturally at home for you? And then obviously seeing all these other counterparts in your league, did it feel like you were at home right away?
Yeah, it felt like I was at home, and being from Columbus really helped with that, right? So I had all my family there. Now, what helped make me make that decision was also that my mom was getting married and my stepdad was in the Air Force, and they were moving to Germany. So I wasn't going to Germany. There was no way I was going to Germany, even though my mom was like, "Hey, come to Germany." Like, nope, not happening. I'm going to stay. So it was more of I had that support network there in Columbus. So that made it easier to kind of say, yep, I made the right decision. But then you add all the fact of guys that you knew you played against, guys that you knew from camps, guys you knew from being around in Columbus. And we missed out on June Henley. I really tried to get June to come.
Yeah, June went to Kansas.
He wanted to go to Kansas. He wanted to go to Kansas. Ohio State wanted him to play corner, not running back, and he wanted to play running back. So that was kind of the decision there. But definitely, it was a comforting feeling to be around so many familiar faces and guys that you knew and saw. And I knew Roger from before, so that really made just getting there and seeing him on my visit and talking to him and kind of like, yep, I'm good, no worries. Like, it was very easy for me to make that decision, and very comforting when you're kind of like, all right, I know him. And I had known Jason and Anthony and Terry for years. So when they got there, it was just like a Brookhaven reunion. And Coach Miller was always at practice as well when he could. So it was always being around familiar faces that you had grown up with and kind of had seen and kind of helped get you along the path and where you were.
Hey, that's like I said, I was sitting there and I remember a lot of these names. Before we go back too deeply into OSU, you shared a little nugget there, and I'm curious. So your mother is moving to Germany at the same time that you're about to be a freshman at OSU?
Yes. Yep, same time. So
that's a big moment.
I literally graduated like June 9th, June 10th, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And then my mom got married like June 21st, June 22nd. And then she was gone. Like she literally moved to Germany. They packed up, packed everything they had and took it and moved to Germany. So they were at
grow up quick,
one
right?
of the Air Force bases. I grew up really quickly.
So what does your twin brother do at that time?
He left. He went with my mom.
He went to
Oh wow! He went to Germany. We both had scholarships to go to Ohio State. So I had I was kind of a nerdy athlete when I was in high school. So we both had full academic scholarships to go to Ohio State. And so I was like, come to Ohio State. Go with me. We could be roommates in the dorms. Like, nah, I'm gonna go with mom. So he went with my mom, and they went to Germany, and I stayed here. And I stayed with my aunt for the summer, and then went to camp, and then stayed on campus. And so I grew up really quickly. Because of that, because now I'm making my own decisions. I'm kind of like on my own. Yeah. I still had a support network of all my family and cousins and friends if I needed it, but I literally was making my own decisions and adulting at 18.
Yeah, that is a huge transition. I mean, for a lot of college kids who, I have a daughter in college, and I have buddies who, and when I was in school, a lot of us get to school and we're like calling home every weekend, right? And calling home every night, trying to get that support. And literally at the same time, this huge life decision for you, which is college, and that's huge for every kid, right? Every kid that has this opportunity to go on to college is a big deal. And here you are making this big decision at the same time. Your support team, your main support team, is moving across the country. I mean, moving across the planet, right? Like they're moving to another country, and so you have to quickly acclimate and grow up and change. And then obviously we named some other Columbus City people around you, but you get thrust into it, and then now all of a sudden so you're trying to make the best of a decision that you made as a young person. Any challenges while you're at OSU and dealing with that? Because that's a heavy lift, I would think.
It wasn't so much a challenge. It was just kind of like adjusting to the freedom, right? Like I had lived a very structured and sheltered life. I'll be honest. Like I grew up in Capitol Park apartments, so anybody knows what that is. Like, so I, it was definitely a tough environment. As I got a little older, when I was there, it was kind of like, all right, not a bad place. And then, more gun violence became more prevalent. You kind of understand how that goes. So, like it was either I went to school, went to practice, or I was at church. Like that was kind of like where I was. Like I didn't really hang out with too many people there in my neighborhood. All of my friends were really smart. So my mom was like very like, even though I told her I wanted to play football, she's like, okay, you're going to get an education. Like I heard that my entire life.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just kind of like, I got to get out of this environment. So it was very structured. It was like, don't do this, don't do that, make the right decision. So it wasn't hard. It was just more now my mom wasn't there. Like, so I didn't have that voice in the back of like, get up, like you need to do that. It was up to me to do that. So yeah, it was kind of like, all right, do you go to class today? Like, you know, when before I didn't have a choice, now you have a choice. And so I had to make sure I made the right decisions. And so that was really the biggest hardest adjustment, was getting that. And then just going to class and balancing football and practice and all the expectations of coaches that they were putting on you. So I luckily had the guys that you mentioned that came along eventually. I knew those guys. The girlfriend that I dated in high school was a year ahead of me, so she was already at Ohio State. So I had some good examples and some people around me. We had a really good support staff at Ohio State, so they kind of helped keep me on the right path. And I'm not gonna say I made all the right decisions all the time, because
you're college kid, you having fun, right?
I took that growth as it went.
Yeah.
But definitely, you know, I made sure that I did what I was supposed to do most of the time that I was there.
Certainly. Well, you know, and that's the beauty of transitioning. You get into college like you shared, and then you have all this kind of newfound freedom. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of things here, because we're winding down. This time goes fast, like I shared, right? We look up and half an hour sneaks away from us. But I want to touch on a couple things. So we get the Brookhaven, we get the legends that you played with, we get the City League guys that become a part of, you know, the brotherhood while you're at OSU. And so I read that you had a 100-yard interception return for touchdown. Is that yes. one of your best memories? Or are you share with me? Is there a best memory while playing for OSU?
There were so many memories, so many things that I loved. I think one of my favorite memories was finding out that I got voted captain by my teammates, because that was really cool, really special.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to happen. So I was really like one of those quiet guys, just kind of like, I'm gonna just do what you're asking me to do. I'm a hard work it. So wasn't that vocal, but to be voted captain was one of the highlights. The 100-yard interception was like, that was one of my favorite highlights, one of my favorite plays, because leading up to that week, it was one of those things where they're just like, somebody needs to make a play. And so I remember, you know, we were trying to figure out the scheme that we were trying to do. And one of the coaches was like, Kerner, you need to make a play, make a freaking play. Like he used some other choice words with that.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
yes, indeed.
I'll make a play. And so we got to the right formation that we had studied and had looked at, and they threw the pass and I picked it off and took it back 100 yards. And so I'm in that record book as having one of the tie for, I think it was David Brown, that had the first 100-yard interception return. So I tied him. But then we play Wisconsin this week. And I also blocked the field goal with them to protect a 14 or preserve a 14-14 tie. That was probably one of my favorite plays when I was at Ohio State, because I love special teams, and they had a left-footed kicker. And so they shifted their line to the right. They put an extra guy on the right side of the line, depending on how you like to rush.
Yeah.
So they didn't think that I could get there. And so literally think about that unbalanced line. In football, they had an unbalanced line to the right saying, you're not fast enough to get to my left-footed kicker. And I got it. And so I was kind of, okay. So that was one of the things where I love just being there, but just my time at Ohio State was special. Like I take everything that happened, it was for a reason, and I loved everything about it. But you know, those are some of the plays. And then I blocked the field goal against Michigan as well. And let's stay there for a moment, right? Because I want so like I said, we don't have a lot of time left, but I certainly want to ask this question, because I think there's been like maybe 5 or 6 times when the OSU Michigan game has ended in a tie, you know, with the same score, right? And you played in one of those games, right? You played in one of those games. I think it was 13-13 tie.
13-13 tie. Now, I did this research once before, just on my own, just the nerd in me and curiosity, right? And I haven't been able to figure it out. So maybe you can help me learn, and everyone else who's maybe curious. How did it end up in a tie? Why wasn't there an overtime session, or was there no overtime back then?
Overtime back then. So
no overtime back then.
We didn't have that. It was just when the horn sounds, that was it.
That's it.
It was however it ended. It was ended. So I think because of us, and I want to say there was one other game that ended in a tie in the AP, and they didn't want to have the tie. They wanted to have a mechanism to say we need a victor in this, like, because back then we didn't have this current college football playoff system to set up.
Yep, I knew that part.
Voters, so the AP voters had to decide. So how do you give a team that's 11, like 12-0, the national championship, or a team that's 11-0-1? And that's like, how do you decide that?
Certainly.
So I think they kind of realized like we need to kind of change that. And there had been talk for a while about what would overtime look like. And so they came up with an iteration of it where each team got the chance. And so we ended up tying Wisconsin that year, and we ended up missing out on going to the Rose Bowl because we were both 10-1-1. We ended up losing to Michigan that year.
Okay.
And so we were both the same record, but because they hadn't gone in a longer amount of time, Wisconsin became the Big Ten representative,
right? Okay.
Instead of Ohio State. And so I think that started the motion of we need to kind of change some things and make
this
sure
format
that we
fixed
have
in a little bit.
We need to get this and settle on the field. Like forget this.
Yeah.
We don't want who's the longest, because then you can get, if a Northwestern runs the table, you could get something where you didn't want maybe the right team. You wanted the right team representing your conference.
So I didn't know that part of it. I knew there was a tie 13-13, and obviously for everyone that knows, you grow up in Columbus, you get your full dose of Buckeye football, whether you like it or not, right? And so
absolutely.
So we got the tie. Your senior year, you beat Michigan.
Yes.
Right. So I want to go and they're giving me the signal, but we're gonna let you do this anyway, because we haven't even really had a chance to get too deep in the NFL, and we won't maybe get too deep in that today, right, with this conversation. But what I would want to do is let's go triple memory. Give me one memory that you would like to share, football related per se, or school related, either way, or game related. Let's go Brookhaven, OSU, NFL. You share the memory that you think kind of maybe says something to you, or something that's just nice and warm in your heart.
Okay, so I think Brookhaven. I think the one memory that there are so many memories of Brookhaven that I have. But I think one of my favorite memories was we were playing on the road at Independence. We were down, and for whatever reason, I wasn't playing that great, and we were running a 2-minute drill, and I remember. We dropped the ball. I dropped the ball and had to fall on it, and we had the clock running, and then we picked up the first down. And it was one of the games that my grandpa, and it sticks out because it was one of the only games that my grandparents ever came to in high school. It was right around the corner. They lived on James Road, so they both came to it, and we ended up winning the game with like 5 seconds left. I did a rollout. We called it cat pass. So I did a rollout to the right, and the corner was in no man's land because I had Steve Ayers on going deep on, and so he had to decide if he's going to cover Steve or if he's going to come and stop me on the run. If he sticks with Steve, I'm taking off. He decides to like play the middle, and then at the last second he tries to break up and get me. And once he knew that I knew he was going to do that, I just flipped the ball to Steve. He catches it. We win the game. And that's it as time expires. So that was like one of my favorite memories. And that was one of the first things that kind of helped us propel and get us going on to the winning that City League championship that year.
And Steve, if you don't know, man, is one of our leaders here in Columbus City Schools, man. He's a good dude. He's one of our leaders. We love Steve,
I think
man.
He's a wrestling coach at
wrestling, and does some football, man, and just really great for young people. You know what I mean? So Steve, it's good to hear that's a nice memory. Yes, indeed.
So that was my guy, because we pushed each other so much. And ironically, my freshman year, Bowling Green came and played us that year. So, and I tackled him. Which is I was throwing the ball to him, and then I ended up tackling. So so that was, and so college wise, I remember the first time I actually thought that I could play at the level. The starter Foster Pope got injured, and we're playing Louisville my freshman year, and they're like, "Okay, you're in." And so I go and play, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, okay, we call a timeout, and it's the last play of the game. And they're like, they're going to run this route, and he's going to run the slant and then break it back out for the 7 cut. So just be prepared for it. And so I did everything they asked me to do. The ball falls incomplete, and I hear the crowd go loud. And that's the first time I've been around like 96,000 people going crazy. And screaming like, good job. And so that was like the first play that sticks out, because it kind of helped me make that transition and helped me understand that, yes, you actually do belong here. You can play at this level, because you always have that doubt. And then same thing that happens as I remember when I get to the NFL, I was a Broncos fan as a kid growing up. I'm sorry about the drive, Browns fans. I was probably one of the only people in Columbus cheering for that 98-yard drive, because I was a Broncos fan growing up. And the first game we play, is the Broncos. And I remember going out, having to go against my childhood idol, John Elway, and he's throwing it at McCaffrey and Rod Smith. And I'm just remember like how fast those guys were, and Shannon Sharp. And Terrell Davis was a rookie that year. And so I made a few plays on there. We ended up losing that game. But I remember just thinking like, okay, I can definitely play at this level. And I broke up a couple passes and a deep John Elway bomb. And I got to see how good of an athlete he was and how strong his arm was, because the only quarterback that I've ever seen roll to the left, hash of a field, stop on a dime, turning back and look on the right side and see a streaking Rod Smith, and throws the ball on a rope 30 yards in the air. Like he just turns and just snaps his wrist, and that ball comes, and I could hear the ball go by my ear as he throws this ball in between me and the safety in cover 2. And I was like, okay, that's why he's John Elway. And
no doubt, yeah.
That's kind of stuck in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but that was the first game I played well as a rookie, made a couple stops, broke up a pass, stopped Terrell Davis from scoring a touchdown that year. And so that kind of helped me say, okay, yep, you belong, you can play here. And then we later on played Cleveland in that season as well. So
hey, so I'll get you out of here on this. You know, first off, man, thanks for sharing all of your amazing gifts and your story with us. Your body of work is definitely, hopefully, you know, as things align, maybe we get you on the show, we do a part 2, because you've had such a tremendous story. But I want to end on this and see if you remember this. And then I'll let you share if there's anything that pops in your head, man, that maybe we didn't touch on that you think would be helpful for the listeners here in Columbus, Ohio. But in your year when you get drafted, so your draft status, I think you might have went, I can't remember if it's second or third round, but your draft status, your pick, and then immediately behind you, I think, if I'm correct, Lorenzo got picked. Did you guys get picked back to back? Is that accurate? Is that the way it played out, that you got picked? And
yeah,
then
it was
Lorenzo
really close. I was third round pick. I want to say I was like 73 or somewhere around there. And then Lorenzo went like right after that to St. Louis. Nice.
Do you remember Lorenzo when you guys would have played against Independence? He was a sophomore, I think, then.
I remember Lorenzo from not so much from high school, but I remember Lorenzo as a teammate when we were both at Ohio State. Just his presence and what he brought, like, you know, he was just the guy that you look to. Like, you need leaders on every level, right? And as I mentioned, I was more of that quiet guy. Like, I didn't say too much. I kind of more let my play and my actions speak more for me, where Lorenzo was probably a little bit more vocal, and you needed that. And so I had no problem. Like Lorenzo, we had a relationship because we had known each other. I hosted him on his visit briefly. Okay. Because he wanted to hang out with Roger Harper because he knew those guys back in the day. So we talked briefly and like, look, you got Harp, you're good, we're there, no problem. So I knew he was going to come to Ohio State. Wasn't an issue, but he's doing an amazing job, and I love watching what the Suns are doing now at Ohio State. So definitely Lorenzo was just. He was a good player, and both of us, got to live out that childhood dream of getting to the next level and playing and contributing as long as we could, and so we both did that. But it was ironic that we both got drafted, and when you look at that draft day, so many Buckeyes went first round, with Joey and Craig Powell going, and just so many, and just thinking about the talent that we had there. So I think Corey Stringer also went in that round too. So when you think about all the talent that we had at Ohio State, there were so many guys that I happened to be fortunate enough to be around. So it was just fun just to be there and watch it. And my guy, Chris Sanders, tippy toes as well in that receiving room. So we were talented. We had a lot of really good athletes, really good people on there, and just unfortunate that we could beat everyone else and not really be successful against Michigan as Coach Cooper's predecessors were able to do. And that's something that I wish we were able to be a little bit better at, is just have a better winning record, better record against Michigan than we did because we were like 96% against everyone else. Like we beat everyone else just for some reason, just when it mattered, we made that one crucial mistake or made one error, mental error, and that cost us the game. And, I think that's something that I can't say I did get the one pair of gold pants, but I wish I could have had 4, like some of the guys that have come after me.
Run around and say that. Yeah. Hey, well, look, I was going to say, you definitely got your pair of gold pants. Hey, Marlon, it's been a real treat for everybody here in Columbus, for our radio listeners, and we didn't get a chance to go deep into it. Marlon's got.
I'll come back. We can do a part 2. I promise.
Yes, indeed. I love it. Marlon's got this beautiful backdrop that he has set up here for our radio listeners. He's got some Buffalo Bills stuff going on. He's got some OSU things, but he doesn't know that I see up in the corner there the St. Bonnies. St. Bonaventure is up in the corner. We're going to figure out what that's about on a part 2. And I know that just because when I was in school at Duquesne, we're in the same conference as St. Bonaventure, so I would play up at the Bonnies. We got to get out of here. I appreciate you spending some time with us. I got to read the outro and say all the fun stuff that the producers tell me I got to say. But, hey, man, it's been a real treat, and want to give you a chance to say, please say goodbye to all of us here in Columbus, and then I'll do the outro, and we'll definitely find a way to get you back here with us.
Okay, well, definitely thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm honored just to be a part of that long line of tradition from Paul O'Neill to Harry and June and Helen and just so many great Brookhaven athletes to come along. So thank you for allowing me to share part 1 of my story. I'm looking forward to coming back at some point at a later date to share part 2.
Certainly.
And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, and we had Helen on the show before too, man. So we've had some of those legends on here. But much respect to you today. Be sure to catch all future episodes on radio WCBE 90.5 FM. Also catch us on Spotify, Apple, or the platform you prefer to listen to your favorite podcast. Additionally, follow us on Instagram, City League Sports 614. I'm your host, Vince Clarno. Until next time, this was City League Sports.